right, here we are. A lovely edition of Chatterbox Reds. And, Nick, it's a Sunday night edition, which means the game happened quite some time ago, which more times than not kind of makes things a little different from the perspective level, I guess, right? You can become pretty frustrated as you watch a game. This time of the year, though, you're just counting down the days, and you're trying to think through perhaps what is what from next season. We've kind of done that, I guess, in a nauseating way for maybe 2 weeks now. But they haven't left us much of a choice, Nick. I don't know if people want us or they're looking for us to break down these games in great detail, but it seemed a little poetic. I know you would maybe disagree. You're not as pessimistic on the offense as I am, but it seems like there's poetic justice here on the last day of the regular season for the Reds' final home game. They get shut out. It's been a good series, though. I'm sure you'll let us know about that. But golly, I hope we get a little help on offense. We'll see. But they were blanked, lose 2-0, and here we sit on Sunday, Nick, with 1 week remaining, my friend.
It would have been nice if the Pirates would have pushed Skenes back to pitch in Pittsburgh, but no. Kind of surprised. Is this surprising to you? I was looking at this. So the Pirates in Cincinnati this past weekend, they have a 3-game homestand against the Brewers Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then they close at Yankee Stadium. Are you kind of surprised they didn't manipulate to have Skenes make his last start at home?
In Pittsburgh, maybe I'm hesitant just to read the outside noise that comes in from Pittsburgh, because clearly in Cincinnati at times you're going to have some of the same sentiments, but it seems as if the Pittsburgh ownership group could care less about winning, is what they say, and all they care about is the pocketbooks. You'd like to think that would help the pocketbooks, right?
Yeah.
If that's the case, then I would think you have a point, but my guess is they didn't want to do anything unorthodox with Skenes. They wanted to keep him in his regular schedule. They didn't care less about how many people come to the games. And maybe they don't care how many people come to the games in Pittsburgh because they get a revenue share anyways. I don't know. I'll tell you what, one thing that zaps the absolute love of baseball out of me more than anything is when you start to get into all of the banter of the ownership groups back and forth and this, that, and another. And it's just it just gets so tiring at some point that I'm just maybe I'm being the guy that's not the can-doer, but I just give up on the ownership thing. I do. It just beats me down to where I don't want to say I don't care, because that makes it sound like, I don't care about the Reds, but every team has owners. It just comes down to whether or not this front office is capable of executing at a higher level than everybody else in the league. And if they're capable of doing that, we'll have a competitive team. Now, whether we win the World Series, Nick, I don't know, but I don't know how I got there from whether or not, Pittsburgh's cares, but that's where we're at.
I'm with you on that. I have no idea what the Reds are going to do this offseason. I felt like in previous offseasons I've had a little bit of an idea, but this one just feels so...
Yeah.
I have a weird feeling about it, just because I know the Reds were expecting better attendance numbers this year and they didn't get it. So...
Right.
And this whole Bally just continuing to hang over year after year. And there's been comments, not the Reds, there's been other teams' comments, or maybe the Reds are lumped in there, but it's been more of a collective. The Bally teams aren't going to spend and whatnot. So I don't know, but my biggest fear is we get through this off season, and I'd be very disappointed if the Reds just stand pat. I'm going to be disappointed, but at some point, I'm going to be I'm going to move on from that. It is what it is. And I'm going to want to talk about the team that we have. And I'm afraid we're going to have a hard time collectively moving past that. If that happens, I hope it doesn't.
Sports fandom is one of the hardest things to calculate when you should be upset and when you shouldn't be upset based off of personnel moves, right? You can, from a fan perspective, and obviously I'm very much one of them when it comes to the game. I think on an individual game basis, or if you watch a game, I think it's reasonable to get upset and get you got to figure out a way to get a guy in from third base with less than 2 outs in this situation or that situation, whatever it is. But I always find it incredibly difficult to really be too judgmental on personnel moves because there's so much that goes on behind the scenes of those things that you really don't know the full story ever. Hardly ever do you know the full story. And that's kind of where I'm at this offseason with the Reds. They need to make some moves, but I'm not going to sit here and act like this is 100% the way they have to go about doing it. I just know they're going to have to take risks. And I know this sounds like Jesus take the wheel of me. I just pray that we get lucky and we hit on the risk we take. Like, they're going to have to bet on a couple of these guys that inevitably have not proven that they can stay healthy and or they haven't proven that they're consistent big league players. There's just not enough consistent players that we have right now that they can't not risk something. But thank you to Ricky here real quick. He says, member for 10 months. That's big time, by the way. Says, this show is the best. Thank you, Nick and Trace, for doing this show after every game. And shout out Craig and Shane and everyone else who fills in to keep the show running. Shout out to all the goats in the chat as well. So thank you, Ricky, for supporting us. It's been a grind, obviously, the last, whatever it's been, 3 weeks, 4 weeks or so. But for the most part, Nick, we're trying to hold it down. Thank you to Craig, as always, for quite frankly, being, the ultimate utility man. But he's not done doing that either this season. So we're at a point now, Nick, where I think from a show perspective, we'll do the box score recap, of course. As far as the deep drive of the day, we're going to keep shouting out DSC, even though whether there's deep drives or not, who knows. But nonetheless, we'll get into some topics of conversation, but more so we'll see where the conversation carries us on what is a Sunday night edition of Chatterbox Reds, and I guess a Monday morning edition for the podcast.
Yeah, and shout out to the podcast listeners. Still a decent amount of people listen to the podcast every day. I don't know if you just have the auto downloads on and or maybe it just your Alexa auto plays and you don't actually listen. But whatever you set up, I appreciate it nonetheless.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, box score recap presented by Nick Kirby.
All right, Reds taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. Reds are hoping to get their first sweep against the Pirates since 2021. Hunter Greene started for the first time since August 13th. Greene struck out the first batter, Nick Gonzales, on 3 pitches. But the next batter, Oneil Cruz, absolutely destroyed a ball that went over the Toyota Tundra sign, 442 feet, 107 off the bat. Greene would then give up a weak single to the next batter, Joey Bart, but Greene ended up retiring 8 of the next 9 batters, and his day would be done. Final line for Greene, 3 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, just 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. But Paul Skenes, he continued his brilliant year, not just against the Reds, but everyone. Reds mustered just 2 hits in 5 shutout innings from Skenes. He struck out 9 without walking anyone. Skenes didn't even look like he broke a sweat, only to throw 73 pitches as he is on a sort of innings limit at the end of the year. Reds bullpen was great. They only allowed 1 run over 5 innings, but the Reds offense only had 3 hits in total in the day and 4 total base runners. Reds lose 2-0. This was loss number 81 on the season, meaning the Reds would have to finish the year 5-0 to finish 500.
All right, and we do have a deep drive of the day. How about that? That's what happens when you have Chatterbox Reds on a Sunday night. You get a little bit of minor league action. And Edwin Rios, he's been in the big leagues before. He's been on this Reds team this year. Hit a 2-run home run. That's his 22nd homer in AAA Louisville. 105.8 off the bat, 440 feet. That's a bomb. 32 degrees, launch angle, and Edwin Rios. He's hit 286 with a 932 OPS in 99 games at AAA this season. Shout out to Edwin Rios. Good, a very solid season in Louisville. And what's been another solid season is the Deep Drive of the Day, sponsored by DSC, and they are a leader in renewable commodities, specializing in biofuel production, used cooking oil collection, aggregation, and sales. Visit www.deepsouthcommodities.com for more information. And thanks to DSC. Listen, I got to reach back out to DSC, of course, to see where we stand heading into next season. The tough news typically about the way the Red season has gone is, what kind of avid partners are you going to be able to go through? Hopefully we can stick through the tough times together with our partnership groups, because I very much appreciate them supporting us and supporting this show. So we'll see if we can't continue the DSC Deep Drive next year. The other thing that was nice to see today, Nick, was obviously something we lobbied for. I don't know if the vast majority of people agreed with us, and there's reasonable debate on both sides. But Hunter Greene got a chance to throw the ball, albeit relatively a short stint, which I thought was pretty smart. But I'd like to see him back out there. I don't know if you took the same sentiments as you watched him trot back out there for the Redlegs.
Yeah, he wasn't fully ramped up, and he hadn't gone on a minor league rehab assignment. Today was actually the last day of the minor league baseball season, so not going to be a whole lot of opportunities there. But yeah, his velocity was down a little bit early. Seemed like it was back pretty close to normal towards the end. Only gave up one hard hit ball. That one was a very, very hard hit ball. But other than that, I mean, look, he looked really good. He talked in the post game about how important it was for him to finish the year, and I'm with him. I don't know. I'm curious to know if they like. I don't really want his season to end, and obviously it's going to end. But I'm talking in terms of like him shutting it down. I honestly would kind of like to see him go out to Arizona and throw a couple more simulated games. I know it's not the same as finishing a full baseball season, but I'd like to see him get those innings up a little bit more. I don't know if they'll do that or not. I don't know if teams in general do that kind of thing or not for a player like Greene. I know if it was a player like that only threw 30 innings, he would certainly, do more of that. But
Ian Jabot or something like that.
Yeah. Not spoil the lead, but Ian Jabot threw again today.
Yeah. Well, you got to.
They worked him hard at the end down in Louisville.
Yeah. Well, I think Hunter Greene's certainly the select handful of guys that we're gonna have to be, borderline all-star, heading into next season. I just hope that this club's able to be a collective unit and it be a solid baseball team, right? Like we do preach all the time about how we need Hunter Greene to be great. We need Elly to be great. We hope that, Matt McLean comes back and reproduces what he did the season prior. TJ Friedel and Nick Lodolos and the likes. But I really hope we get to a point for this franchise where it's kind of ho-hum, no matter who you put in there, you keep it moving. And I know people are going to get frustrated by what I'm getting ready to say, but if you look at great organizations throughout all sports, it seems like no matter who you plug and play in there, it still works. Now, how you get that recipe, Nick, I don't know. And I'm sure that there's plenty of franchises that are trying to figure out how to get that recipe. But you look at the Brewers, plug and play. It works. I'll go in the NFL. Like, I watch the Pittsburgh Steelers play, and I'll be honest with you. This isn't bias. I'm not a Bengals fan. I think they look terrible. But they win. It's like every week they find a way to win. I don't know how they do it. The Packers have been that way for years. And it's just like, I don't know what it is about certain franchises, if it's just this pure, persona or this concrete belief system. But I hope the Reds get themselves to a point where they kind of believe, and the Cardinals have been that way too. Let's not act like they haven't. So let's see if they can't figure out a way to get some core guys going. But more importantly, we're not banking on Hunter Greene being unbelievable. I hope he is. And we're not banking on some of these other guys to carry us. Because let's face it, Elly and Hunter, for the most part, carried this team well and above and beyond what I ever expected them to do this season. We just need some more help. And that's the big question, is whether or not we will get more help. Speaking of help, if you need tickets, Nick, if you're looking for tickets, I got some help for you. You can download the Game Time app, and even more so, you can use the code CINCY, CINCY. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. And the thing I was thinking, like, I had to go, and I pulled one of the all-time most ridiculous moves ever that I've pulled in my life, working-wise, on Saturday. So I got a little lazy, Nick. I told you, hey, I can't do the show Friday night because I had planned on driving up to Ann Arbor. I'm doing a video board event, and I was planning on driving up to Ann Arbor and spending the night there, waking up because I had to be in Ann Arbor by 8 o'clock. It's about a 4-hour drive for your boy here. And I was like, you know what? I'll just wake up super early, Nick. I'll drive up there. So I did that. I get up there. It's a beautiful day. Absolute gorgeous day. I downloaded the Game Time app. Of course, I already had it on my phone, to be honest. I open up the ticketing. I open up the tickets for the USC Michigan game, and I'm like, is it worth the risk of me getting these tickets? There was tickets for like $75 to get in the big house to watch that game. I was like all in. And then my responsible self was like, you can't do that. You're here for work. What happens if something happens to this video board and it doesn't work? But of course it worked perfectly the whole game. I would have been fine, but it is what it is. But I just want you to know, I have that app on speed dial on my phone, basically. At all times. If I'm around an event, I can open up that app and boom, I can get tickets.
You know, I know a lot of people probably aren't thinking about the Reds this time of the year, but the friendly confines next weekend.
Yeah.
$7 Fridays. Tickets starting at $22 on Saturday, $17 on Sunday. So if you're ever looking to go to Wrigley Field, not have to shell out a whole bunch of money, this next weekend would be the time to do it. Beautiful
time of year too in Chicago. It can get very, very hot in the summer, and then obviously if you go at the very beginning of the season, it can be incredibly cold. So good call out by you. So if you're going to use an opportunity to go to Wrigley Field, use the Game Time app and use the code CINCY, CINCY. You get $20 off your first purchase. And to round out my story, Nick, I ended up leaving that game at about 8 o'clock that night and drove home. So if you're doing the math, I left at 4 in the morning in Cincinnati. I got home at 1 o'clock at night. So that was a nice, solid, what we call a 21-hour day. So,
Great. But Trace, what time is it?
It's game time. That's a good call by you. I mean,
terms apply.
Yeah, terms apply. Leaders are in.
I don't know if we threw them all in there, right? But they're all in there. All the words are in there.
Cut them up. Check them up. All right. Speaking of other help, if you need some help, 988 is a great resource. Please text or call anytime. Political season sometimes, Nick, I think can kind of weigh on some people. You have to listen to all these negative ads here and there. It seems like it's just as much as I love our country, and I do. Let me tell you, I love our country. It just seems like this time of year it can get a little tough because you have maybe people that you love and they're getting flamboyant or jumping on one side of the aisle or the other, and maybe it just turns toxic at times and you're feeling down and out. As always, if you ever feel like you need some help, please text or call 988, and as well, mantherapy.org is a good place to go. But life is better with you in it. And we very much appreciate, obviously, Tony and his team and what they do, not just for us, but for Ohio as a whole. So speaking of Ohio, we'll have the who, what, when, where, and why here in just a bit. But before we get to that, we have the Reds offense. We have that as just an open dialogue, a vague statement. I don't know what to make of the end of the year, but I do think this, Nick. Like, I thought for the past 4 or 5 weeks as a whole, maybe even a month. I'd have to go back. 4 or 5 weeks is a month, Trace. Maybe even 2 months. I thought they've been actually pretty solid. Your takeaway, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, like overall, the weekend, I mean, I think you have to be pretty pleased. Beat the hell out of Mitch Keller on Friday night. Beat around Jared Jones, a really good pitcher. I know he struggled a little bit at the end of the year, but he's a really good pitcher. And then look, today, if there's Paul Skenes is a problem. I tell you, man, this guy is really good. And I'm so like scared to say, like, watch out for the Pirates after last year. Like, I'm a little gun shy, but man, he is really, really good. And they have some pitching, and it'll be interesting to see if they're a team that can take a leap next year too. I get it. I'm not gonna. I'm done. I'm not gonna come up here and watch out for those Pittsburgh Pirates next year. But man, they got some really good pitching, and Paul Skenes is pretty incredible.
Well, I don't want to hijack the segment that's supposed to be about the Reds offense, but that leads me to the thing that I was thinking here as I watched some of today's game is the Pirates, in a way, could also replicate or resemble, I guess would be a better term to use, of what I think this Reds team might actually end up kind of looking like. Yeah. Like, they have a lot of young arms that maybe can carry the load, and you're just banking on the fact that you can go out and get some veteran bats that will help you kind of get yourself over the finish line, if you want to call it that. Let's face it. Chase Burns, and I don't want to put him up against this, Nick, because I don't think it's fair to Chase Burns. But people are going to think I'm crazy for saying this. I think Chase Burns has the ability to do what Paul Skenes is doing now. I do. Now, I get that Paul Skenes came with a bunch of hype and all this, that, and the other, but Paul Skenes' makeup is very similar to what you're going to get in Chase Burns. It's going to be high velocity, incredible spin rates, and just enough command, or good command, if you want to call it that, to be able to be effective. And I'm not pushing or hoping and praying and saying that if Chase Burns isn't that guy next year, then all hell's breaks loose. He's not worth it. But that's where, if you want to have some optimism in 2025, if you want to say, I'm feed me anything, I'll tell you right now, Rhett Lauder couldn't have looked any better. Any better. Hey, no matter, even the guy like myself who absolutely adored Rhett Lauder as soon as I seen him in spring training this past spring training, I wouldn't even have said this is how good it could look. So you have that in the fold. You obviously have Hunter Greene, who's coming off his best season that he's ever had. And then you jump into the fact that you took the number one pitcher in the entire Major League Baseball draft, who has very similar upside as a Paul Skenes, and I think he's a super fast track type of guy. He could be thrown in the rotation. And then from there, I know this sounds crazy, but you have like 6, 7 guys that I can make a case for that can be more than serviceable at the big league level. And then, oh, by the way, and I know that everyone says this, is it going to get this bad again from an offensive perspective and injuries when it relates to these position players? And I'm not saying it can't. Don't be coming barking to me if it does. But I'm just saying, if you want to be optimistic, there's a high likelihood that McClain, Friedel, again, whether Fraley, someone in right field, we'll just call it that. I don't want to downplay our guys. Stephenson, these guys are going to come back and be pretty decent when otherwise they weren't good this year. Stephenson and Elly are the 2 guys that maybe we'll call overachieve this season. Outside of that, there's only one way to go, Nick, in my opinion, and that's up.
Yeah. I think Stephenson's the only guy that I think is a regression candidate, but I don't think it's that crazy.
Not much, yeah.
Elly, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to always drink the Elly Kool-Aid, but it doesn't feel like he's going to regress next year. It just feels like he's not even close to his finished product. So could Elly have a down year at some point? Yes, certainly it's possible. But yeah, I mean, to your point, look, I've been doing some research the last couple of days, for some of my other adventures, looking at the Cleveland Guardians, the Reds' next opponent. Cleveland Guardians last year won 76 games. You know who they signed this offseason, Trace?
Who?
They signed Austin Hedges and Ben Lively. That was their 2 minor league signings this offseason. And they just clinched the AL Central with a week to go. So they did nothing. Their players just got better. I mean, Their young players got better. So I don't think that's something you should just completely bank on. I fully agree the Reds should increase their margin with error with some smart signings, trades, whatever, to improve this roster. But the notion that this team can't just naturally improve because they have young players that are getting better, I think that part of it's a little silly.
100% agree, and there's always going to be a diamond in the rough that comes out of nowhere that I think surprises everybody and plays a little over their head. And that's kind of what I hope that happens as well. And I know people will scoff at the ideas of the Blake Dunns of the world or the Reese Hines of the world or anyone like that, but it's like, I'm just hopeful that one of these guys that we weren't ever expecting to be like a really nice critical player, and I guess TJ Friedel might be that guy, to be fair. I'm just hoping that one of them kind of catches fire and they find themselves, and then all of a sudden they just belong and they're there, and we got the guy we want.
I think it's CES. I think CES is the guy that kind of fell out of favor really quick.
Yeah,
I think he's the guy that I'm going to be selling the hype train all offseason on. I really do, and he might even start the year in AAA, and that's fine. But I think he's going to be the guy that takes a big leap next year and really helps this offense more than any other piece.
I'll take a stab at one too then, and people are going to hate my guts if I'm wrong on this, and they'll make fun of me and clip it. I think Marte can I think Marte has the biggest opportunity to go from what the perception is of him to what I think he can be. And whether or not that's a third base, I don't know, Nick. Openly and honestly, I do think that there are some concerns I have defensively there, but I really have some high hopes for what that kid can do at the plate. I just, there's something about his swing that when he starts getting going just a little bit and having some confidence and hitting the ball, the other way and seeing pitches, and I get it, that's a lot of hitting. He can be damn good, and we'll see. I mean, no guarantees, but that's my pick if we're gonna start making some candidates. So I guess the corners is what Chatterbox Reds believes in.
Yeah,
so we'll see. But all right, we have really quite literally not a whole lot of Reds MILB left, Nick. Today you had mentioned this is the final day of the season for the Louisville Bats. I'm guessing they might have wished that it ended with Chattanooga, but no, they got to play a little bit longer.
Well, they finished the year strong, so shout out to Louisville. They beat Omaha 6-0. Actually finished the year winners in 3 of their final 4 games. Tough season though overall. They finished 67-82. It's a .450 win percentage, which doesn't really sound all that bad, but that was the worst out of the 20 teams in the International League. There wasn't a 90-game winner in the International League. Kind of a lot of jump. They play about 150 games. I mean, they have a lot of rainouts and they don't make them up. So every team plays a different number of games. They're about 150. But nonetheless, a lot of players in action that are at least interesting. Yeah, Ian Jabot pitched again. He threw a lot the last week. I think the Reds have been trying to get him as many games. I don't know if they're going to shut him down or if they're going to send him to Cleveland or what. But his best outing by far of any of his 4 outings during his rehab assignment, did put up a scoreless inning. He actually started this game. He was the starting pitcher. Did walk a batter, only threw 11 of his 22 pitches for strikes, but he didn't allow a hard hit ball. Did get 3 whiffs on 10 swings. His velocity is still down nearly about 2 miles per hour on his fastball. Looked like all 4 of his pitches were down a little bit. But again, he had really struggled. He allowed 7 hits and 5 runs in the previous 3 games, so much better. Now, after Ian Jabot, David Buchanan, how about this performance? 8 innings, 1 hit, no runs. Pretty remarkable performance from David Buchanan to finish off the season. Tyler Callahan, he walked twice in this one, also stole a bag. He went 5 for 14 with 7 walks in his 4 games since getting promoted to AAA Louisville. Guy I'd really like to see in the Arizona Fall League. Nick Martini, he finished his maybe season. I don't know if he's joining the Reds or not. He's technically on a rehab assignment. He hasn't been optioned. Martini went 2 for 4 with a double. Martini at AAA had an OPS over 1,000 in 23 games. Vaughn Johnson also finished his year strong. He had a really nice year. Kind of came out of nowhere. 2 for 3, double and a walk. He had a .359 on-base percentage in 46 games at AAA Louisville. As mentioned, Edwin Rijos' 22nd home run of the year. On the not-so-good side, Bubba Thompson, he went 0 for 4 to finish off his season. Bubba hit it combined. This is his slash line trace. 225, 259, 239 in 236 at-bats between AA and AAA. And Jacob Hurtubise, he did not play in the final game of the season, but he did have a nice September. Hit 338, 444 on-base percentage in 16 games in the month of September.
Let's hope Jacob Hurtubise is a guy that can kind of come up on kind of taxi. I know it's not called a taxi squad, but taxi squad-ish type player where you need to fill in for a couple days and he's gone. And I don't mind him in being that type of role. But it's kind of unfortunate for him, too, that he got hurt a couple times this year because I thought that this was, if any year was an opportunity for him to really stick it in the big leagues for quite some time and get a real stretch of baseball to see what he ultimately could be capable of doing at the big league level, this was the year, and it just didn't work out. So a little unfortunate for Hurtubise. But as always, there's more baseball to be played. Not tomorrow, though, but soon. Nick, who, what, when, where, and why?
Yeah, Tuesday we're going to get another shot of Jacob Junis 4-0, 2.61 ERA. He's going up against the Guardians ace. This will be his playoff tune-up, I believe. I think it'll be his final game of the season. I don't think if you pitch Tuesday, you're probably not going to pitch him the last day of the season. So, but Bybee is 11-8, 3.56 ERA. This guy last year finished second in the AL Rookie of the Year voting and has just continued his success this year. Relies on 4 pitches, mostly 4-seamer, slider, changeup, and curveball. Fastball averages 95 miles per hour. Now, he started against the Reds back on June 12th. He dominated the Reds through the first 5 innings, struck out 11, but then you might have forgot about him. Jeimer Candelario hit a 3-run home run in the 6th inning off him, and the Reds would actually go on to win that game. But since we don't have Candelario on the active roster, the active Reds, not pretty against Bybee, 2-for-11. Will Benson and TJ Friedl, the only guys that have some hits. But the Guardians, as mentioned, already clinched. They had 2 celebrations over the weekend, Trace. They clinched a playoff spot on Thursday, and then on Saturday they clinched the division. And you know what they said? We're having champagne celebrations for both of them. They did it twice.
Nice.
Gotta respect that.
Yeah, you do gotta respect that. I haven't seen the Phillies. I think the Phillies had the same type of sentiment. They made the postseason, and they kind of said they were going to get a little excited. They were going to do something tonight, but they're more or less focused on the division. So
I remember the Reds in 2013. They didn't celebrate when they clinched the wild card because they still had a shot at the division, and they thought that was it. And they literally never celebrated anything for a 90-win season.
Right.
So
celebrate when you can, baby.
Yeah, clearly you need to.
Maybe that's the problem. Some are saying.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
what
what
celebrate
happened.
enough.
Yeah. Should have celebrated more. I mean, if we would have celebrated in 2013, at some point, maybe we would have thought we actually accomplished something, and then they would have actually accomplished something once the regular season ends. So that's what some are saying, but not me, of course. All right. For myself and Nick, thank you so much for many of you continuing to watch the show night in and night out. Thank you again to Craig for always filling in. And more importantly, like the stream if you haven't already. And download the podcast, listen to it, do whatever you got to do. As we said before, feel free to have Alexa play it while you're on the way out the door. Or, you know what, just get it with a cup of coffee and enjoy it all to yourself. But I know this. We're one day closer to opening day 2025. I mean, yeah, you can say whatever you want, but that's something to be worth celebrating about. It's going to happen one day, all right? I mean, come on. If you don't have faith, then just don't be a sports fan, you know? Don't be a sports fan. Somewhere at the bottom of the depths of your pessimistic soul, you got to rip out that little small sliver of optimism, and that's what we're going to try to do for the next week here on Chatterbox Reds for what has been, for all accounts, a pretty disappointing 2024 season. So, for myself, Nick Kirby, to the chat, we love you, we appreciate you. We'll see you again, back better than ever on Tuesday. Take care, everybody.